as president. Let's continue our conversation with General Michael Hayden. Mike, all this talk of amnesty via executive order adds a new layer to our security concerns, I would believe. The notion that terrorists can be among those coming into the country who will not be adequately tracked. How big a concern is that for you?
Well, it's not zero, JD, but so far, even though we've got a porous southern border, there has been scant evidence that the terrorists have used that to enter the United States. Look, there's a security issue on our southern border. Everyone understands that. We need to pay careful attention to it. And there are networks there that are willing for cash to move just about anything across that border. So the danger is always present. It just seems up to this point, the cartels and other crime syndicates there probably have a pretty good idea of how hard we might come down on them were they to opt to move terrorists as opposed to undocumented workers or even drugs across that border. So far it hasn't materialized, but let me end where I began, JD. It's not zero.
All right, fair enough. You did write about some concerns in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, your op-ed piece with the headline, NSA reform that only ISIS could love. This in response to the so-called USA Freedom Act on the floor of the Senate. Your concerns about what the Senate is trying to do to deal with our intelligence agencies?
Well, the first concern, and I co-authored that with Judge Michael McCasey, the former Attorney General. The first concern is that the Freedom Act, the Leahy bill, hasn't gone through regular order. There have been no committee hearings on this proposed statute. This is a big deal, JD. We don't need to create a false sense of urgency here and try to rush it through the lame duck session. Let's let the Congress is going to have to live with it, deal with it, after we come back in January.
And while the Senate is trying to take legislative action that you question the whole notion of that remedy, you mentioned in your op-ed reports that terrorists tracked by our intelligence services have started encrypting their communications in ways that defeat detection and that the government is losing track of some of these people. All of this, does it tie back to the leaks from Edward Snowden?
Absolutely. And let me be clear about this, JD, because Snowden and his supporters keep saying, and there's been no shred of evidence that anything he's revealed has harmed American security. And when I go talk to folks at NSA and say, okay, guys, straight up, is this work getting harder to do? The reaction I get, JD, is they just roll their eyes and say, oh, my God, yes. And so, we're not going to go out there and catalog for our enemy, even though we'd like to catalog it for our public, how much we've lost in terms of our coverage. But Matt Olson, who just left his head as the National Counterterrorism Center, Matt has been very explicit about this. Yes, we have lost track of some terrorists. Our ability to track these people and their intentions has become more difficult, more challenging for us to do.
And mindful of that, with the degree of difficulty tracking these terror groups, with the holidays soon to be upon us, how would you characterize, based on what you've seen in years past, we hear about chatter, the inclination of these groups to try to perpetrate attacks on our homeland. How concerned are you about that this time of year?
Well, we've got this threat right now. ISIS, which I think is all of us consider the one of most concern. ISIS right now only has regional reach. It has global ambition, but regional reach. So what we're going to see for a while going forward, JD, is the lone wolf, the self-inspired, maybe the small group being launched out of the Middle East. Maybe something as bad as what we saw on Christmas Day 2009. Remember the underwear bomber and the aircraft over Detroit? But my advice to my family, my advice to my countrymen, JD, is keep calm, carry on, but if you see something, say something.
And on that note, certainly you've had a lot of comments. Just 15 seconds, your op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, have you received some feedback on that?
Actually, very positive feedback. Then again, my email network is comprised largely of like-minded folks, but they were enthusiastic.
Well, candid in your analysis and disclosing just who might be offering those favorable reviews. Mike Hayden, as always, we appreciate your insights and analysis. You heard from General Hayden, and we have more ahead as America's Forum continues.